Hey, all right, A10. This is meeting 23, I believe. And we're going to do chapter 8 for Ender's Game. So this is now, Anderson's been watching how Graf has been handling things. And of course, Anderson has some reservations about it. And that's my text tone, if you can hear that. All right. I better shut that off here. There we go. Okay. So we have there's a bit of a rift between Anderson and Graf in their differing approaches for Ender, and Graf is going to some massive extremes with Ender, and Anderson's having some reservations. And so there's a long conversation and dialogue, and we get introduced to the hegemon and the Paulmark. So they're governing bodies within the international fleet, and more so the governing body that dictates whether or not certain plans should be initiated, approaches, and things like that. So it's like if you had a conflict and you need to resolve it, you start with the person that you have a conflict with, and then if it's not resolved, you go to the next person above that, and then and try to resolve it there. If it's not resolved, then you go to the next person above. You don't go right to the top, because that causes massive problems down the line for not only the person you had a conflict with, but for yourself. So conflict resolution is better, because and it can take a little bit of time and patience. But if you try to resolve it with the person that you have a conflict with, hopefully it doesn't, hopefully you can just move on and there's no more issue and stuff like that. But if it continues to be a problem, then you move to the next level. And Anderson's thinking about going right to the top, because now Anderson's female in the movie. In the book, Anderson's male. So just a different, just keep that in mind there. But Graf is getting a little snarky at Anderson, and is basically questioning the friendship they have, or their relationship, and but trying to let tell Anderson, I know what I'm doing with him. I know I've taken him to extremes or taken extremes to break him down, and so on and so forth. But the big quote here is this part here. Ender Wiggin is 10 times smarter and stronger than I am. What I'm doing to him will bring out his genius. If I had to go through it myself, it would crush me. Okay? Major Anderson, I know I'm wrecking the game, and I know you love it better than any of the boys who play. Hate me if you like, but don't stop me. Okay? So there's a bit of a reprieve, and Graf is able to continue working, molding Ender here. Okay? So the chapter is entitled Rat. So now the Ender has to start again, right from the bottom, and then continue working his way up. And we are introduced to a few more characters. Some of these characters are not in the movie, so just keep that in mind. And so Ender's trying to get his bearings, I guess, so to speak. And right away, it's they get into practice and like try to get to kind of get in sync, I guess, so to speak. Get some kind of routine going, and so on and so forth. And just kind of scooting through here. Oh, yes. So Ender gets to the point where he wants to practice all the time, and now it's getting to the point where the other, I guess we can call them soldiers, or cadets, I guess, don't want to practice with Ender because if they do, they're going to be penalized by their own commanders for practicing with Ender. Like Ender's been helping everybody else out up to this point, and now in order to isolate Ender further, the word has come down that anybody that practices with Ender will be, I guess, dock marks or points or whatever, however they're recording things there in order to keep track of the assessments of each cadet. And it's like, Ender has to figure out, okay, well, what else can I do here? How am I going to handle this? And so on and so forth. And some people do rebel and take their chances because they want to become better. So they do cross the line. And Ender does manage to get a small group of supports in place so that they can get better at playing these games and move up the ranks. So, what else do I need to focus on? Oh yeah, he gets back into the Giants' drink again because he still wants to try to win this game and get to the next level. And so he's moving up. He gets to a certain point and he conquers that, and then he has to start again and he has to get up to the next level and so on and so forth. So, what's the saying? 2 steps forward, 1 step back, that kind of thing. So that's basically his existence right now in battle school. Okay. All right. So, oh yes, and one more thing. As he continues to move up the ranks in the game, he is continually reminded that he's becoming more like Peter every day. And so this is Ender's worst fear that's coming true. And the novel explains why it's Ender's fear, worst fear anyways. So, and you can read that at the end of the chapter yourself. Okay, so chapter 9, we have Locke and Demosthenes. Forgive me if I mispronounce it. So this is a focus on Peter and Valentine. And we find out that Valentine and Peter want to have utilize their traits and skills and so on and so forth. So they create, well, actually it's Peter's idea at first. And so they try to get on the net and try to, they want to be taken seriously for one thing, but they're still kids. Okay, so the question is, how do they get an opportunity to share what they know, their thoughts, ideas, opinions, maybe manipulate the thoughts and ideas of others, and so on and so forth. And we see that a lot on social media too, where you have groups saying this about this topic, and then you have another group saying this about the same topic, but it's a different perspective, and so they try to sway your support accordingly. And we get a little bit of history, or a bit of a history lesson here in this chapter 2, so pay attention to that as well. And um, oh, there's a phrase here that Peter says, we don't talk like other children. And above all, we don't write like other children. So it's because of that reason they feel they have to, and Valentine grudgingly agrees that they need to articulate, share their ideas in some form, in some arena, and so they come up with these aliases, and so um, we have Locke and Demosthenes. Well, they're born out of this desire to um, express themselves and their thoughts and ideas. So they sneak away to get on the net, and they end up making money off this too, in order to pay for access to the net, because access to the net is limited um, to adults anyways. And so by portraying themselves as adults, they can um, try to, how can I say, um, sway public opinion, have some kind of control over decision-making processes, things like that. And so they utilize their father's citizens' access to get onto the net. And so they're able to keep their regular schoolwork up, and then they're also doing this Locke and Demosthenes on the chat and discussions and discussion forums, that kind of stuff, to get their thoughts and ideas out here. So then we return back to Ender and his continued battle to move up the bumpy path that Graf has placed him on, and how will he be able to get himself back on track. So I think we're going to leave it at that, and pay very close attention to Valentine's and letter to Ender as well, and just see how much control Graf does have in this whole Ender situation. So, all right, so we'll stop there, and we'll see you in the summaries.